The night after Cannae, Rome forgot how to breathe. The city that had once roared like a forge now whispered like a tomb. Streets that usually thumped with wagon wheels and merchant calls lay empty, watched only by statues and shadows. Somewhere in the dark, a dog howled, and was answered not by other dogs, but by distant weeping. On the hills, the funeral fires had not yet started. There were too many dead for that. At the Capuan gate, a line of torches burned like a trail of accusation. Wives, fathers, children gripping wax tablets that held the names of sons that they would never see again. They watched the road as if staring hard enough might conjure the lost legions back from the dust. They saw only a few. A trickle of survivors, burned, limping, hollow-eyed, passed under Rome's walls like ghosts allowed back into the world. Among them rode Publius Cornelius Scipio, no longer just a terrified 18-year-old on a doomed field, now a young man who had seen the inside of a slaughterhouse and lived. He did not feel like a survivor. He felt like a thief who had stolen his life from the dead. News of Cannae spread through the city not as a rumor, but as a shockwave. 2 consuls gone, dozens of senators dead, entire families erased, not just sons, but fathers, brothers, heirs. Some noble houses now had no men left at all. The numbers became a kind of madness. 40, 50, 60,000? No one knew. No one wanted to know. What they did know was this: Rome's greatest army had marched south, and it had not come back. And Hannibal Barca was still in Italy. In the Curia, the Senate met in a panic that no marble could hide. Torches spat and crackled. The air smelled of sweat and fear. Old men who had treated war like a game piece on a board now listened to reports of Cannae with white faces and shaking hands. Some called for envoys. "Let us talk to Hannibal," one senator urged, voice breaking. "We've lost too much already. There must be terms to spare the city." Others went further. "Let us sue for peace with Carthage, return Sicily, pay tribute. What is pride against survival?" They did not say aloud what everyone knew. Rome had never lost this badly before. Perhaps Rome had never truly believed it could lose at all. Quietly, a few powerful men making other plans. Purchase estates in safer cities. Move families south or west if Rome fell. They would not fall with it. Scipio heard the whispers, not just in the Senate, but in the streets. He saw it one night near Porta Capena. 2 noblemen, men he recognized, men whose sons had died at Cannae, were slipping away with packed mules and a handful of retainers. Not leaving for another front, leaving Rome itself, deserting. He blocked their path, still in soot-stained armor, sword at his side. "You're in my way, boy," one of them snapped. Grief burned into anger. "Move aside." Scipio did not move. "I was at Cannae," he said quietly. "I saw men die standing in place because they believed that Rome would stand with them. Are you telling me they were wrong?" The older man's jaw clenched. "Hannibal is coming. You cannot stop him with speeches." Scipio drew his sword, not to strike, but to make the point clear in cold steel. "Then we die here," he said. "Or we live here, but we do not run. Swear it. Swear to me now that you will not abandon this city." They stared at him. This young patrician, scarcely bearded, eyes still carrying the dust of Cannae, and something in his gaze frightened them more than Hannibal. He held out his blade like an altar. One by one, cursing under their breath, the nobles laid their hands on the steel and swore. Scipio walked away, shaking, only realizing afterward how badly his own hands had trembled. Rome was not just walls and stones. It was choices, like the one he had just made. And if enough men chose wrong, no wall could save them. Days bled into weeks. Hannibal did not march on Rome. Instead, he moved through Italy like a wolf among farmsteads, calling Rome's allies to abandon her, offering freedom, loot, a world without Roman chains. Some cities opened their gates to him. Most watched the horizon and prayed. Rome answered in a new language, not the proud, confident thunder of legions, but a harsh, desperate tongue of survival. Boys, barely old enough to shave, were conscripted, handed shields that hung as offerings in temples. Old men were recalled to service. Slaves were promised freedom if they would take up arms. New legions were scraped together from the bones of a broken state. The people were told to burn their own fields before Hannibal reached them, to poison wells, to strip the land bare. If Rome could not match Carthage in brilliance, she would outmatch her in stubbornness. Better to starve with Rome than to feast with Hannibal, they said. Scipio watched all of this, the riots, the funerals, the oaths at bedside altars, and something inside him hardened into shape. He had seen what Hannibal could do to an army. Now he began to understand what Hannibal was doing to his nation. In quieter hours, away from the smoke of morning pyres, Scipio bent over maps. Italy, Spain, the roads and rivers, the mountain passes, the line of the Alps like a scar on the world. He listened to the veterans who had fought Hannibal more than once, men who had survived Trebia, Trasimene, Cannae. "He makes you think you're winning," one old centurion rasped. "That's the worst of it. You think you've got him trapped. Then the trap closes and you realize that you were the bait." Another traced lines and spilled wine on a table. "He fights with the ground, with the sun, with the dust. He makes the field itself lie to you. If you chase him straight, you're already dead." Scipio absorbed it all, the tricks, the patterns, the way Hannibal turned pride into a weapon. Then he asked a question that made veterans pause. "All right, we know how he defeats us," Scipio said, "but how do we beat him?" They had no answer. Not yet. Rome's older generals clung to old answers. Fabius Maximus, the conqueror, advised caution. Shadow Hannibal, bleed him. Avoid pitched battle. Others chaffed under that strategy, calling it cowardice. But the city's cupboards were nearly empty of men, of hope, and of alternatives. Scipio watched the arguments and quietly chose a different path. He did not yet have an army, but he had time. Time to sharpen one weapon Hannibal could not outflank: his mind. On training fields outside the city, he drilled with new recruits, not as a distant noble, but as a man who had stood in the worst of it and come back. He taught them what he had seen, what he would never forget. "Do not think in a straight line makes you strong," he told them, drawing curves in the dust with the tip of his sword. "Think like water, like smoke, like him. Then think one step further." At night he sat alone under guttering lamps, replaying Cannae in his head. The bending center, the vanishing cavalry, the closing jaws. Each time he imagined a different Roman response, a different formation, a different use of terrain, again and again. until the nightmare of the massacre became something else. A lesson. Hannibal had crushed Rome's pride, but in the ruins of that pride, Scipio found clarity. Rome could not keep playing Hannibal's game. Charging straight into genius was just another way to commit honorable suicide. To beat a man like that, Rome would have to become something new, more flexible, more cunning, less in love with the sound of her own marching feet. And somewhere, Spain perhaps, where Roman armies still grappled with Carthaginian power, a chance would emerge. Word eventually reached Rome of a fresh disaster in that western theater. Scipio's own father and uncle slain in ambush, their forces cut apart. Grief struck him like a spear. But beneath the pain, a colder realization formed. The war was no longer just between Rome and Carthage. It was between two ways of thinking, two minds, Hannibal's and his. When the Senate looked for someone, anyone, to take command in Spain, most men looked away. No one wanted another Cannae with their name on it. Scipio stepped forward. He was young, too young by every Roman rule. But Rome's old rules got buried at Cannae. "I have seen how we die," he told the Senate quietly. "Let me now show you how we can live." He did not yet know how he would do it, but he knew this. The boy who had escaped Hannibal's killing ground was gone. In his place stood the beginning of something else. Not yet the Scipio Africanus who would stand at Zama. Not yet the man whose name would echo through centuries. Just a young Roman who had looked into the jaws of annihilation and decided to learn from them. Rome was still bleeding. Hannibal was still undefeated. But somewhere between the funerals and the drill fields, between the maps and memories of dust and death, a different Rome was quietly being forged. One led not by habit or arrogance or blind courage, but by a mind Hannibal would someday have to face.